Welcome to my second powerful guest, the Reverend Bill Minson, on this Nor'easter Saturday in New York City, January 29th, 2022. And welcoming someone who is been with me for 20 years, who is just as powerful and honorable as any other guest I would have on my podcast / YouTube channel. I really honored for you to be here. You mean a lot to me. You are not only a reverend, you are a friend, you are a mentor, great speaker. You're a chaplain for the US and for the Las Vegas Fire Department. You are doing so many wonderful things. You're a minister. You're just so, I'm so honored for you to be here today and be a part of this second interview and starting it high and, starting this process with really qualified and powerful guests.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the invitation, Monica. And to God be the glory for all those things that you say. I owe it all to God. I really do, including the blessing of knowing you for all these years. You look much too beautiful to talk about us knowing each other for 20 years. Okay.
That's a hard. God did that. God takes good care of you, as you know. When you do God's work, you got to look good, right?
We have
fight through us. We're the disciples. Last time I checked, right?
Well, yeah, I'm still leaning more on hair and makeup. Well, maybe not the hair so much nowadays, but anyway.
You still look good. You're still shining his light. And I do want to say, before you start speaking about what happened, I want to, really honor our NYPD force for the power of yesterday, and losing two of our young, 22 and 27 is way too young for anyone to lose their lives. And Officer Herrera, it was a powerful service at St. Patrick's Cathedral. Thank you for doing that and being a part of that sea of NYPD Blue. It shows that we have that same unity that we had on 9/11 after the horrific attacks, losing all of our loved ones and continue to keep losing. So it's so powerful that you're a part of that process, and you're all over, and I can barely keep up with you. And I want you to share that, what you went through yesterday, and tell people who you are, really, because you say it best. I could do it, but you're so eloquent, and I just think you need to be the voice.
Well, again, to God be the glory. Everything that's happened in my life has been a blessing, including meeting you, is by the grace of God, and I'm very grateful. I want to talk about our meeting, but the service yesterday, the wake on Thursday, was for me personally one of the greatest outpourings of affection, of respect, and support for law enforcement that I've experienced in a long time.
I agree.
I was standing in line with Detective Muhammad Aman from the Community Affairs Department of the NYPD. He had worked with Jason as a cadet, and I stood in line with him and a couple of other NYPD members waiting to go view his body, and then had the honor of having to my left and to my right police officers salute now Detective Rivera.
Yes.
Made detective yesterday by our incredible new NYPD commissioner, who I had a chance to talk to after the service yesterday. To be able to stand there and bless his body with police officers to my left, to my right, with a long-standing relationship with law enforcement throughout this country, was really an honor. Law enforcement, fire service, military, our essential workers are the backbone of this nation. It was after we met, because of the tragedy that happened with Michael. September 15th, 2001, we started praying every day at 12 noon for law enforcement, military, and firefighters, recognizing 343 firefighters went into a building And some of them had to know going in that they might not come back out. But I use this expression that our first responders, especially our fire and police and our military, they run to danger every day to save people whose names they do not know. Mm-hmm. Ministry unto itself. And Officer Rivera's brother yesterday spoke of his love for the NYPD as really literally being a ministry. Nobody does something like that. You know why I always, you are one firefighter wife. I have other police wives. And I get off the phone with them and I tell them, you know, tell your husband he's my hero. And I mean that. Because, you know, what Bob does every day, you never know what call is coming. Yeah. Dominique spoke yesterday of her husband. And she spoke, you know, and you can identify with this because you're a widow. You lost someone, not intending to, expecting to have a long life together. She said that they had an argument that morning. Yeah. And that he asked her, would you like me to take you to work? And she said, no, I'll get an Uber. Mm-hmm. And I just read this and I listened to her words yesterday in the church. I heard he said, this is, maybe this is the last ride I'll have a chance to get. Well, you never think that way. Of course we don't. But, you know, we live life every day, Monica, as though there's no end to it, as though it's going to last forever. And in theory, that's fine. And every morning I wake up, I think, well, so far, so good. But when I'm with people that are 80, 90, whatever their condition is, I always remind them, you may be here at sunset, but I may not. We just don't know what life is. So I come to this part, and first I want to say I love Bob. I love Bob Murphy. Please let somebody know. Now it's not just because I'm about to say I love his wife. I love you, Monica. I love you so much. Anybody could be looking at you. They say, well, the Rev's got good eyes.
Well, we love you too, so it's all good.
It's not about the way you look. No. It's about what I watched in you, what I watched in Nicole Petroselli over 20 years ago. Two young women whose lives have been destroyed, snatched away from them. No explanation, no rhyme, no reason. And I can't express to you to this day what I felt. I couldn't put it into words, except it seems so unfair. But life, you know, life has its good parts and it has its bad parts. And as I reflect back now and I look at Nicole's daughter and I look at your two beautiful daughters, it is a testament to what God can do if we're willing to go forward. So the reason that I love you is because your resilience, your ability to not just give up, and not only your resilience, but your determination to bring others with you has been one of the greatest examples of going forward, being a trailblazer, being somebody that's on the battlefield for those who can't fight that day, but needed to be a little bit stronger, and then they could fight. And I tell you, Monica, I just don't know anybody that I love more for the life experience, the good and the bad that I've seen, that's really taken lemons and turned it into lemonade. You are some incredible woman.
I'm blessed because I have God. It's my faith in God that has brought me here. He spoke to me 10 days after and said, you're going on a mission. And I had no idea what I was doing. God did it. I give God all the credit for this. And I thank God every day for giving me the strength to survive this nightmare, because I don't think I could have done it. I didn't even know what to do with myself. Like, you know, I still, even now, 20 years later, can't wrap my brain around it. The only thing is I feel so heartbroken for Dominique, because I know when you have an argument with someone, when Michael left that morning, it was, I love you, I will see you later, kiss goodbye. And I'm so grateful, you know, that we didn't have an argument or something, you know, and we were able to exchange that last I love you, which is so important. And I'm feeling for her right now because I understand that pain. I understand that loss of, not being able to say that one more time. But I am confident that when she was at the hospital and he was in an, he went in between, he's probably there with her when he passed, he heard her. He heard her. He heard that moment.
I agree with you.
I give her that confidence in her to make her feel better, because I know she's suffering right now and she's in the midst of the pain, and I know how that feels. So I want her to feel good that he heard her. They know, you know how that God knows, he was there. He was right.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I can say this to you. I posted in social media maybe an hour or so ago, because there was a quote of her statement about this. You could hear a pin drop in St. Patrick's yesterday as she spoke.
Oh, I listened.
Never. So you listen, so you know what I'm talking about. Never in my life, and I thought about it, have I heard anybody speak more courageously than that woman yesterday. To stand, and I made in my social media post a point that she has given a gift to all of us. Get over it. If you're upset with somebody, if you're angry with somebody, get over it, because you have no guarantee. There's a quote, there's a passage in the Bible that says, anger gives a mighty foothold to the devil. We are an angry nation. We are an angry people. We are angry at people and we don't know why. And media is inciting this anger for various reasons, having to do with their advertisers, having to do with money, having to do with politics. But if we are angry, Dominique gave us a sermon yesterday at her cost.
Yes.
To get over it.
Yes.
Because you don't always get that chance to change. Whatever it is, let it go. And in the next moment, if I don't have that person, what a blessing, what a contrast you have compared to her.
Oh, I thank God every day. You have no idea. I was heartbroken for her yesterday. Every hair on my stood up, but I know for sure, I could feel the energy that he heard her voice. He heard her before he was there. He was there. He heard it. I want
yes.
to express, because I just felt the pain through the TV. I could feel her pain, and it's going to take time. It will, but what she's doing, what she did, her message was very clear. And the devil is upon us, and we need to show God's presence again. I think when I was in St. Patrick's Cathedral memorializing his picture, not him, obviously Michael, I have no remains of him. So I honored his picture in St. Patrick's the same way. And I couldn't do the eulogy that I wrote. I had my sister Felicia do it. I couldn't even do it. So yep. I give her credit, because I could not do it. I gave the paper and my sister read it. That's how it had to do it, because there was no way I would have been able to do it, speak clearly. And I was a wreck. And that was almost 3 weeks after. So I commend her for that. I don't know how she did that, the strength she had to do that. She's to me, resilient as well. And it's going to take time, but I see she's going to do something very powerful. I feel it.
Yes, she is. And you just gave me a perspective that really takes what I experienced yesterday to another level, because nobody or very few people could really recognize what it was to be her and stand there and to hear what you just said. I watched her yesterday in absolute disbelief. When they announced that she was going to speak, I was shocked, because his brother had spoken so eloquently. When they announced that she was going to go up there, that was shocking to me 1 week later. And I have to tell you, from your perspective, I have another widow. This is Stephen McDonald.
Yes.
You know Stephen's story.
Yes.
Okay. 10 days earlier, Monica, this service was the 5-year anniversary of his passing. And I'm there in St. Patrick's with Patty Ann, his wife, Connor, his son. Met Mayor Adams, had a conversation with him. Met the new police commissioner, Sewell, and had a conversation with her. And thinking, wow, it's great. We're here. We're remembering Steve. And then Friday, 3 days later, both these guys are shot.
Unbelievable.
And I was in, I think I was in Santa Monica when this happened. And I called Patty Ann and I said, I was in Las Vegas when I called Patty Ann on Sunday. And I said, you know, I know there's no way that you cannot be going back over Stephen's shooting from what just happened. And she said, yeah, you're right. Because we're honoring his memory 5 years after his passing, shot as he became a young police officer in that wheelchair for 30 years, 31 odd years, being one of the greatest inspiring people I've ever met in my life and inspired so many. And now you see a 22-year-old and I think a 27-year-old shot. And I saw Connor yesterday at the service. I know how difficult it's been for them. I know how seeing her yesterday, I can only imagine what it did to you. But here's the good news. She is going to do something great. Like you did something great. You know, you started September's mission. You became an advocate. So great things happen out of tragedy. We wish we could avoid tragedies, but it's like what happens in life. I got a simple deal. Bill, if I wake up and I see the sunrise, do I get to see the sunset? It's all in God's hands. The in-between part, try not to hurt anybody, do the best you can, try to love somebody, and try to stay positive. If you do that, then that's a good contribution to make to humanity. And that's what we need more of. So
we need more faith. We need more faith. Faith is so key also to this, because if every day I thank God for my life and for my family, and I'm grateful for all the people in my life. And, you know, God sends me signs all the time through the clouds. That's like the Holy Spirit communicating. My girls have witnessed it. It's this, you know, the power is when you have faith and you believe, it's amazing. You just give it to God. God will take care of it. He will take care of it. He's going to take that burden from you. He's going to help you. We need a little bit more, whoever your God is. This is not about just one God. It's whoever your God is. This is interfaith, but we need more of that. And I think that that funeral really showed the power of that faith. I've never seen that before. Not even during 9/11 with the sea of NYPD, a whole mile. I've never seen that. My daughter even watched all the police cars going. She was like, what is going on? I said, they're going to St. Patrick's. But it was so powerful. That just brought me right back to 9/11, like 9/13, and seeing the power of that force. I mean, that was powerful. I have to be honest. It was like seeing the FDNY, remember back in the day, you know, and that's a powerful thing. And I think we need to tie that back into our faith and why it's so important that we remember that this is not acceptable. This is not what this gun violence has to end. We have cops committing suicide. We have people, our service people committing suicide because, they see this, and this is where we're having so many issues now. And if we have to get back to our faith, we have to find ways to help them heal and understand that we need them.
well,
we keep losing them, and it's just not acceptable. There is something wrong, and we have to get back to it.
What you just said, we need them. And that's my mantra when I thank police, firefighters, dispatchers throughout the country. I ask them how they're doing, how's your family? And I remind them when I leave them, I'm praying for you every day, and we need you. I need you to be okay. When the infrastructure of our nation is weakened, then America has nothing to rely on. People can talk wonderful about what they're going to do or what they'd like to do or what they want to complain about. But when it goes down and that fire bell rings at Bob's house, they got to get in that truck and go. They can't sit there and deliberate.
He's there today. Okay? No storm. He's today, so we'll be praying for him and all of them, because they're in the midst of this nor'easter right now, and this is not the safest place to be either. So,
well, this is why I remind law enforcement. It was September 15, 2001, when we started praying at 12 noon for firefighters and police and military. But now it's hourly, Monica. You know why it's hourly? Because the killing will not stop. Because we have so many criminals that are given license, people that have drifted by the wayside. Nobody cared about, nobody loved, nobody made sure they had an education so that they could afford to have a place to live. And this anger boils over, and that's why we're seeing the killing that we're killing.
Worse than ever, though. We don't have enough services now for the mentally unstable.
Well,
way too many guns around now. I don't know what's going on. People are just shooting people randomly and pushing people, trains. I mean, we've gone mad. We've lost it. The devil is upon us, and people need to understand he is upon us. If we don't pay it, he is going to take over. That's my feeling. God tells me every day, be very vigilant, be very cognizant of what is going on in the world we live in today.
You know, Monica, let me just say to you, you're on the verge of being called a little Jesus girl. I'm just warning you.
I'm a disciple. It's okay. I take it. I want to be a disciple. I'm God's girl. That's me. That's who I
am. My mantra is faith. Have you ever seen the Hollywood sign?
Yes.
Okay. So my mantra every day with the visual is faith, the size of the Hollywood sign, and fear in the smallest letters that you can see written in small letters on the beach. Okay. Faith is so huge over fear that fear is hardly in the picture. However, in our reality, it's the reverse. We have become a fearful nation. We respond to fear. We respond to threats of fear. Fear is driving our nation away from love. So what happens is everybody gets afraid, they get angry. Then they want to quit because somebody's doing something to them. You know, we're all living together, and we're not living in such a way that we're saying to the Bobs of the world, to our firefighters, to our police officers, to our military about to be deployed again. You know what I mean? Throughout the world, helping people, helping countries survive threats. We don't say to them every day, you are what makes America great. We need you. Thank you for what you're doing. We are praying for you and your family, by the way, that you leave at home. Your families.
Right, I agree. That's why these conversations are so important. They need to see that we're saying it and we mean it. I mean, I know I am here because God had me here to do this work for him. When God chooses you, you know how this works, Reverend Bill. When he chooses you, you're the Secret Service for the U.S. volunteer. You're doing all this work because that's your ministry. God has chosen you to do. He has chosen me to be one of his 12. I'm telling you, I know I'm a disciple. As long as I walk this planet, I will speak God's truth and his word and try to get people to understand. I don't have a problem admitting I'm one of God's people. I am one of his people. I listen to him, and he's been communicating a lot more to me than most humans lately. And you know, it's a little overwhelming in the sense that it's not, but it is, because you know, I'm just me. You know, but I am in God's light, and I know that he wants me to share it like you're doing, which is why we're so connected. That light is powerful. We just need to keep spewing it out and letting people know how powerful it is. Those, you know, messaging is so key. You know, what is the message? You know, we have to keep saying it, and it has to resonate. Even if it gets to one person and that one person tells another person, and it's telephone, you know, that person tells that one and that one. Any faith is fine. Just we have to get back to something, because this is not acceptable. We have children being raised here. I mean, we had a little girl get shot in the cheek. She's not even 1 yet. I mean, we have a problem. We have a problem right now.
This is our normal now. You know, we've had a problem for a very, very long time. We've had problems for a long time. However, problems do not necessarily have a time limit for solutions. So like everything else, it's easy to procrastinate for decades. This has been a problem for a very long time. Which one do you want to choose in America? The gun issue, when Sandy Hook happened, I remember saying to somebody, if we don't do something about gun legislation now, we'll never do anything. And unfortunately, you know, sometimes you make statements and find out, unfortunately, you're right. Because our politics do not deal with the needs of the people. Our politics really deal with politicians being politicians, wanting to stay in a profession of being a politician, which has does not necessarily have anything to do with answering the people's needs, because that's the job description. However, most politicians, when they run for office, especially members of the US Congress, as soon as they win, one of the next things on their agenda is their next campaign to win again. Right. And wind up doing a lot of the work that they should be focused on. Now, having worked in Congress, having seen this, and needing money, I still never decided to go back and work in Congress. Okay. So, you know, our politicians are in the business of politics, and that's a business to be in. That's okay. But it's not serving the needs of the people. You look yesterday, what was so beautiful at the wake on Thursday, Monica, people saw the sea of blue yesterday, which I've never seen anything like it. I mean, it was incredible. And you know what was so healing for me is that law enforcement throughout the world yesterday was celebrated. They were all celebrated. They were all appreciated.
Yes, they were. And they flew up, thanks to JetBlue. I mean, JetBlue even flew them in. So that was powerful.
Oh, now you're bringing this up again. This came up in the line that I was standing in the wake, about JetBlue flying police officers in.
Either, which is amazing. See, they're getting the message too. They're doing it. See, they're not talking, they're making things happen. And that is really a credit to them. I'm giving them
I want to go back to the issue about God for a moment, because one of the things people lack is faith. You know, we've become so smart. Now, thankfully for me, every day, I wake up in the morning and I know, number one, I don't know anything. I've learned a little of this, I've learned a little of that, but I'm no great scholar to tell people how to live their lives. Let me listen to others if they have something to say. I'm always interested in intaking information. The other thing I do know is I'm not waking up every day to mess with somebody. I'm not about to tell you, this is what you should be doing. You're wrong about this. You're wrong about that. How about what's wrong and what can we do to work on it together? So I had a chance to speak with some of these NYPD members the other day. And I had a chance to say to them, the police can't solve this problem because the police aren't making the problem. What will solve the problem is the community joining the police. The community saying to the police, what can we do to help you get rid of this crime in our community? And then we'll get something done. We had an amazing discussion. When I spoke with Commissioner Sewell, the first time I met her, I'm looking forward to meeting with her, because people are looking to the police. It's like looking at firefighters and saying, could you just help us not have any more fires? Well, the firefighters aren't creating the fires, it's the people. So you have to have the people involved in stopping the problem. You either are a part of the solution or you're part of the problem if you
just close the door in a fire, please. You know, I agree.
Okay.
I agree. Okay. And I think we have to keep saying that over and over, because I was like, how is it that we didn't know that? I know that, I mean, we've been saying that for years and years and years. I don't know. Do people not listen? I think what the problem is, we don't listen. We're not hearing anything. I think, you know, goes in one ear, goes out the other, and everybody, all people do that I find, talk. And I'm like, stop talking. Do, like, all the time, talking is cheap. Stop talking. Just get up and do something, even if it's a little something. Just do something. You know, everyone, you know, talks about how la 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 la, and la 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 gets what? Nothing. So why don't we just get up and do it? Like, you know, sort of Supreme Court justice who wrote the book, help, and it's a little thing. She, talks little children, put a box together for service people. Go help a neighbor. Go shovel snow today for someone. Go see if someone's okay. Let's get up and start doing things and stop talking, because it's too much talking going on.
Well, Monica, part of the problem with that is it requires change, and people are content with the status quo. And unfortunately, in our case, this new normal that we have come to accept, which I simply don't understand, because for me, there's something about self-respect that's required if you're going to feel good about where you are in society. Now, you may not care. I mean, somebody that's on the street and doesn't have a place to live. I was just with one of my doctors in Santa Monica, in Venice, last Friday. We were walking around to people that are living in tents in Venice. He goes to see about them. He's available. He checks up on them. And I went out with a team that he has 5 students and others. And I felt so honored to see what this man has been doing for 14 years. And he has others going out to check on the homeless, the least of these. Everybody matters in this society. Apparently, some people feel they matter more than others. That's their right. That's their privilege. The reality that I always remember, Monica, about 9/11 was the people that were all running from danger, the people that were running, and the imagery, the visual that God gave us. They were all covered in dust. They were all covered in dust. You couldn't tell who was Black. You couldn't tell who was white. They were all just humanity. Mm-hmm. And they were all running and trying to help one another. Mike Dempsey was trampled, but somebody helped him to safety. People were responding to people. We have issues. We have gender issues. We have issues. And now you come to the question of faith. We've given God up so much. And my reality is we will need God before God needs us. Mm-hmm. Every day, that's all I depend on. Mm-hmm. If there's hope for America, so that our children, like the baby that you just spoke about, not having a chance to live. I mean, Jason had 22 years, but a 1-year-old, for no reason of their own. What is going to change that? It's a simple equation. The person who pulls the trigger is the problem. It's not the gun. The gun will sit there for an eternity. It's the person. How do we stop? And this is nothing new with me. I've been working on this for over a decade. How do we get into the heart, into the head of the person who's got that gun in his hand, but he hasn't pulled the trigger yet, to make him say, how can I ever respect myself again? How can I ever have hope that my mother, my father will ever be happy about my life? When that pressure is placed on them, they won't pull that trigger as easily, because there's always another answer.
I was watching True Stories on my, feed, live TV. It's about, people, dark stories about people who committed murders and rapes and, stalking. And I watched this one, I was watching on 2020 about, they're looking for that reporter from like 97, Jody, and the man, in jail, said how he raped, and he didn't want to rape. He was so angry, and he had mental issues. And the last rape, which was very interesting, that he said it eloquently as well. He said, I prayed to God. I said, please stop this from happening. Stop me from doing this. And he gets arrested and he's in jail. But that was actually powerful, that he asked God to help him, and God did. So I think it's a question of like, we all know it's right and wrong. I think it's a question of just asking God to help you. He prayed on it. He said, please stop me from doing this. I don't want to do this. And he was very clear about how he did it and talking to God about it. And, then he then went to jail. They found him, they got him, and he was so thankful that God saved him, because he didn't want to do it. He was just so angry in his life. He had, been given up. He, had lost a baby. He was just, and that's part of the problem. We have this too much mental illness, and then we don't know, if we don't have anyone to speak to, who do we speak to? So that's why I think God is so important here. You need to speak to someone, even if it's go to church, go pray, do something wherever, so that I know how it feels when you feel like you have no one, but we do have someone.
Well, there is let me put it to you this way. I have an attitude that I share with people, because I deal with a lot of people. There's some people that are just disposed to have their way. They listen to what you say. They know better. They could make the right decision, but they don't, because that's what they choose to do. Well, then there are other people where it is a clinical issue. It is a mental illness issue. It is a mental health issue. But you have to distinguish, because people have free will. And most of us do not have mental illness problems that need to be managed. We have willful illness problems that we need to manage. We make bad decisions. We think about them before we make the bad decision, and then we go ahead and make the bad decision anyway. Why? Because I don't have to weigh the consequences now. I could, but I'll take a chance and weigh them later. Well, later is too late to do anything about it. So what we have is a society where anything goes, lack of responsibility. Now I'll just do whatever I feel like doing. So my prayer is that we don't force our hand to where God says, go ahead, you smart people, you don't need me, you handle it. And when we go over the cliff, and when everybody looks and decides, oh, I have no parachute. Oh, my BFF has no parachute. Oh, I could die. Well, welcome to God.
Welcome to reality. That's a reality check when you're facing death. Yeah, that's.
Well, look, Monica, we are there now. Let me say to you. You said.
I know.
You said something to me. To this day, I've never heard a more hurtful thing said to me in my life. You said, you don't know what your daughters mean to me. You don't know what Bob means to me in your life. Only God knows. You said, if I had known the world would be like this, I'm not sure I had children. And when I heard that from your voice, I heard every woman who should have a right to have a child. I heard every woman that's the greatest gift God has ever given man. I heard every woman say the same thing. Why should that exist? Why should your children go to school like Joaquin Oliver in Parkland went to school one day, 17 years old?
It shows.
Why do your children have to go to school? Why do my grandchildren have to go to a school being afraid that somebody may come in and shoot them to death and have drills to prepare for it? Where is the sanity in society? It no longer exists. We are there.
And then look what happened. You went to Surfside with me. You saw what happened over there. Can you imagine? We can't even go to bed now. Look how many children died in that Surfside collapse. I mean, because of all the negligence and all the fraud and all the things that people did, it was just one bad thing after another that people did, and they didn't, corrupt. I mean, it's just, we shouldn't have to worry about going to sleep. We shouldn't have to be worrying about going to work. We shouldn't be having to worry about school. I mean, this is kind of a nightmare that we're in right now. It's just
it is
and suffering that we're causing, and it's our children. If I'm not here, it's hard for me to even think about leaving them if I was, if something happens to me, because who's going to watch over them? It's my fear.
When we reached the point, Monica, where it got so bad, you have to remember, I was a kid. I went to the park every day. I played ball. I went to Broadway, everything to do, like you grew up. And now You can't leave your child in front of your house to play because somebody will jump out of a car and snatch the child in front of you in the car in broad daylight.
I don't live in a house. I live on the 37th floor for a reason, because it takes a little while to get to me. No, this exactly why I am not living in a house. This is it's bad enough I don't feel safe here. It's the house, forget it. No, it's scary. It's so scary. No.
It's scary, and it lacks
Disturbing.
essence of love and humanity. We have no more love. We have no sense of our neighbor's importance. You know, one of the lowest points of my life experience in America is when I began to hear people say on the issue of this virus that we're still battling, well, no, I'm not going to wear a mask. It's so, I don't care about the other person. Well, so your grandmother has some pre-existing condition. It's my right not to have to wear a mask. I say to myself, is there a lower point that we can reach as a human being than to care absolutely nothing of the other person, but then make a broad announcement about it over and over and over? So media has done a tremendous job of preparing a lot of people to have funerals. The blood that's on media's hand from coronavirus deaths, from misinformation, disinformation, lies to our young people who are not getting vaccinated. I just got off the phone a couple of weeks ago with a young African American young man telling me, I went and got my shot today, Reverend Minson, because I wanted to get this job and I couldn't get the job unless I was vaccinated, which meant if it wasn't for that, I still wouldn't be vaccinated. So I asked him, I said, what's the deal? Why aren't they? Well, we heard this and we heard that and we heard this. Now, I'm not anybody to say, being the senator that I am, I could never make a statement, somebody's going to burn and go to hell. Let me just say this. But the people who have told these lies in media for advertising dollars to broaden their profile so that they would be more popular, they are facing beating me to hell because I'm a sinner, but I ain't one that's lying to people and taking other people to death. The blood on America's hands from these lies to our children, not only the lies, but to show a model to our children. There was a time when people would say, oh, well, you know what, I'd like to see my child grow up. And what would you like to be as a student? Well, I'd like to be the president of the United States. I'd like to become a senator. I'd like to become, well, from what I'm seeing in elected office right now, we have a lot of work to do as a nation, and we need leaders who really have a heart for people, who feel the emotions and the pain of people, not because they're Jason Rivera and have thousands of police officers show up. Every human life has the same value. It should. It should be respected. It should be protected. It should be nurtured. It should be loved. Is it going to happen? No. You made a point earlier in this conversation about the devil being at work. The devil is at work. Many people right now that don't know God believe the devil is winning because the challenges that we face as a nation, you can start with voters' rights, women's rights, gun rights. You can go on and on and on. They're all going to be dealt with or not by people. The question is, what is your agenda? If every agenda is honest and on the table, we'll be able to do something. But we already know there are too many hidden agendas. Our politics are driven by greed, money, power. As long as that is the goal, the people cannot win except through God's intervention. So, to hear you be out there and to be a champion as someone who's not afraid to talk about, oh, God, yeah, I read that comic book. There are a lot of people, God is like a fairy tale. It may as well be Aladdin. Oh, this invisible and da da da, and I don't even know what to call him. But I'll tell you something, it's very interesting. People find themselves in situations of life and death, and all of a sudden they do know God because they cry out, God. They cry out when there's no one else to call for, when there's no human. If you hear people call, Mama, George Floyd cried out. You call out to who you know that can make a difference. People do call God's name, but we need to call it now. We need to call it urgently, and we need to ask God to bless all of us with a confidence and faith that will overwhelm the fear that is presented for us every day to have.
I agree. If anything we can do, if people don't want to do it for themselves, I think we really have to focus on doing it for our children. Is we have to do something for them, because I'm getting chills. We're not going to be here
or not.
Pledge. You pledge. I will. If I don't want to do something for myself, fine.
We can't pledge, Monica. Our word is no longer good. You understand? There was a time when a man's word was his bond. We lie regularly. We're teaching our children to lie regularly. Books, television, literary, film, music have taught us lying is okay. We have to go away from that model and realize that our children can only learn from a new model.
Right, I agree. We have to set a better example. We do. We are real as a nation.
Because everything is at stake. The young people that we're relying on, your daughters are the future. These people right now are being so influenced in a negative way. I don't even know how they can go to school, frankly, and get an education. I wonder what it would be like. Do you sit down and think about what it would be like going to school if you had to wonder about somebody coming in to shoot you every day? I can't wrap my head around it.
I can't either. No, I can't. No, and I grew up in the city when it wasn't safe, but I never had that fear. I always felt safe at church. I felt you can even some places, synagogues, churches, you're not even safe there, in religious institutions. I always felt safe at church, safe at school. It's just beyond right now. And we have to church.
Listen, the devil has convinced everybody.
Go to church now. Hello. Because anyone can come in, and someone has come in places and start shooting. I mean, I always think now when I go to church, do you know how scary this is? I look around and then I think, okay, if somebody starts shooting, what do I do? Where's the nearest exit? I never thought about that. I should be thinking about God. I'm in God's house, but I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking like I'm on a plane and if I have to get out, it's just not a good feeling. Where should I duck? Can I fit under the pew? All these things. I shouldn't be thinking about that in church. It's actually scary. So guess where church is? Right here.
Now, you see, the point, it really is, that is where the church is. I'm 42. I'm headed to 43 years of ministry this September, and without a building. The church remarkably shows up to people who are in need that I never really ask them, do they go to church? Because it's not important. God assigns me, I do what I have to do, and God represents. I have people, whether you show up at a building or not, whether you send money to a church or not, whether you watch on television or not, I have people. So the question is, are people going to become so in pain that they start to cry out? Because the devil's got us right now, Monica. The devil is winning this war. He has convinced people, look, you can't even go to church to be saved. Never mind looking for that God. The devil is trying to win this, but he can't. We know the end result, but people don't. People don't realize. I just spoke to someone this morning that was telling me their niece died from COVID. Everybody in the family tried to convince her, please get vaccinated. She had pre-existing conditions. Her daughter almost died from COVID, would not get vaccinated. People have been lied to, misled, is costing lives after lives after lives.
What that is, we all know, and that's why I say his name is the devil, because it is the devil. Because the other thing is, when you're committing suicide, I keep explaining to people, you're not committing, whatever you're given to do in this life, you have to do it again. So if you decide you're going to take your life, you're going to do that in the next, you're going to come back. You can't just leave. It's not a quick, easy, I'm 12, I'm going to jump off a bridge. No, it doesn't work that way. That is, the devil is taking those souls. Every time we
Yeah,
suicide, he's got one more soul that he's now taken under his wing. And that's our problem. We have to stop that too. The suicide rate has to stop. Our young should not be jumping off of buildings. I mean, that is insanity around here. I mean, it just happened too close to home. I mean, it's just not normal.
everything is insanity because we are part of an insane society, getting more insane, getting more angry every day, knowing it, but doing nothing about it. My number one objective, as I've laid out for people this year, is mental health and suicide prevention and awareness. The numbers of law enforcement, firefighters, and military added to our youth that we're losing every day. And I'm afraid that the weight of coronavirus on our healthcare system is going to drive up the numbers of healthcare members joining those numbers is going to be horrific. And that is the fabric of who protects America.
Yes.
Because if we don't take care,
pray.
our first
like you say, pray. Prayer is powerful. That's why when there's a problem, people say pray, because they know prayer is powerful. So why are we doing that? We're doing that because you know how powerful it is. And I think we need to get back to that. We need to understand how powerful it is to pray. And God hears us,
Yes. And not God hear us. God hears that we reverence something other than ourselves. Because most people right now, we have the answers. There's no answer in Congress. There's a bunch of lies, and there are some answers. But we have to turn to God, as you're saying. And the way that we turn to God is to reverence God and to go to God with every problem that we cannot solve and take ourselves out of the equation and realize we are all but a grain of sand. Maybe some are dressed up. Maybe some got millions. Maybe some got billions. But what's the deal? When they close their eyes, they ain't got nothing any more than anybody else. It can be the man on the street. When you're laying in the morgue, nobody's counting your money around you because it ain't yours no more. It's not yours now. It's something that's been given to you temporarily. How you use it, how you can help people is what's going to be seen. I'm born, I die. What happens in the middle defines what I did with my life. And most of us have an opportunity to do much more than we are.
100%. Amen to that. And that is a great way to end our my second podcast interview. Looking forward to the next set of people that I'm randomly choosing to be a part of it, to spread this word of love and God and humanity, and making sure that we don't take our military, our service people, our first responders for granted, and respect them and really be there for those who need us. They need us. We need to help them and make sure that we continue to do that. And also, when you said 343 firemen were murdered on 9/11, also, I always have to add 3 retirees also were killed that day. And I always have to give them a shout out. I know they were retired, FDNY, but I always have to shout out for them because I dealt with one of the sons who lost his father, who was retired, and I think he gets upset. So I always give that shout out for him and the 3 who also went in. So that's important that we remember. Those are our, we need them, and
Yes, we
keep doing our God work. I really, if people think I'm cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, so be it. I'm going to spread God's love and God's word, and I'm going to keep doing it like you're doing it. And, maybe someone said I could join and be a reverend too. Someone said they're going to help me maybe be like, do that work that you're doing in some capacity, which I'd love to do. So I'm very honored that somebody even said they'll teach me the way. Maybe I'll be like you and follow in your footsteps, because I really, really want to be able to spread more of God's word to people. And,
all you have to do, Monica, is just keep being you. I'm so glad to be interviewed by you, and I didn't have to talk about my relationship with Steve McQueen and Paul Newman.
I know, you did that already. It was so amazing. and
and Dionne Warwick. We
you're
we talk about God, no talk about Ringling Brothers. So I was just wondering.
that's so many things that we'd be here for 10 hours or 10 days.
I'm just happy to be with the very beautiful Monica Aiken Murphy, who I love.
I love you so much.